Alright, today I'm gonna show you guys how I like to mount a scope on a rifle. So what you're gonna need, obviously a scope, screwdriver with assortment of bits, a Torx screwdriver. If you don't have a Torx screwdriver, it's not the end of the world. A level, and obviously the rifle. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is make sure you have your base. Obviously get the right base for the right gun you have. This is a CBA Cascade, an Outer Impact 20 MOA base. This is a short action because it's in 6.5 Creedmoor. I already have it mounted from the previous setup. I put the CBA Cascade in a Grayboe Halo stock. So need to put a new scope on it. So what I like to do for the action screws on a setup like this is 25 inch-pounds. These should already be fine. I need a different bit. This one. These are Torx T15 on these guys. So I like to do 25 inch-pounds on the Torx screwdriver, and I like to torque them starting inside out for the base. Perfect. Pretty simple. I saw someone do that, and I've been doing it ever since, and it's been working. You tighten the middle screws first, and then the outer screws, and that's it. Also for to grab, but I got some scope covers. These are the rings we're going to be using. These are just the 6-hour Alpha 6 rings. 34 mil because we have a 34 millimeter main tube on this scope. And yeah, this is what we'll be using today. The 0.95 inch height, which I think should be fine. But yeah, I got these for free. Never actually really used these rings before, but I'm sure they'll be just fine. And then some Butler Creek Element scope covers and a Vortex bubble level. Alright, so I got the rings on. They're not tight yet, but what I like to do with the rings, on a Picatinny setup like this, you should always apply pressure forward against the rail, so everything gets lined up properly. So push forward towards the end of the rifle and tighten it. I'm all doing this one-handed, so it's not perfect, but you get the gist of it. Always want to apply pressure and then tighten it down. Once you have these on, just snug for now, just unscrew all your normal rings. Should just be a T15. Sometimes they're T25s, depending on which rings you get. But these ones are T15s. And yeah, just unscrew all these, and then we'll put the scope in there. Alright, probably one of the most important steps is to level your rifle. So I like to level it across the ring. Right here. And it just moves slightly, so I'll adjust that. But yeah, basically get it level. And then that will help you later on with getting the scope level. Alright, I got the scope just sitting on top. The height is pretty much perfect above the barrel. I got clearance all here. We got plenty of clearance. So we're good here. So now you want to set your eye relief. That's why I don't have the rings on yet. So you're going to push the scope forward and back when you're sitting behind your rifle until the eye relief looks good to you. Everyone's different, so there's not like a set thing. But in general, kind of rule of thumb, what I like to do with the scope ring placement on like the rail and the scope and everything, generally in the middle of the tube is pretty much what you want to do. Some people like to have them all the way to the edge or like all the way out here. which I just like, oh, it's more stable. No. I mean, technically, yes, but having it centered up on the tube is pretty nice. The big thing is you just don't want it touching like on the where the turret is. You don't want the ring sitting on that or sitting on the bell or sitting on the eyepiece. That's the most important thing. Alright, now we want to level the scope. We already leveled the rifle from before. It's all nice and snug in this tripod. So we just want to get the level pretty much straight on. And then we will just turn it to where it's level, just like that. Maybe slightly more. We get the gist of it, get it level. And then should be good there. And then we'll add the top piece of the rings and screw them down. Okay, so also when tightening down after you have your scope level and everything, when you get that first top part of the scope ring on, you want to have the level up there. And it's not, you don't just turn the screws on. You want to turn a little bit of it, a little bit at a time, and go across from each other. And keep an eye on that level to make sure that the level doesn't or the ring doesn't move the scope slightly. So you just want to do it just a little bit at a time. Go back and forth until it's nice and snug and it stay level. And then you're just going to get them snug for now. And also a general rule of thumb is the gap on the scope ring. You want to keep it pretty close to the gap on the other side of the scope ring. There's always going to be a gap on the scope ring, just a little bit, something like this. You do not, some people I've heard, I've heard nightmare stories that they try to close the gap. They think they need to tighten the screws down to where the gap is completely closed on both sides. That would just completely ruin your scope. Don't want to do that. So once you get that all nice and snug, just add your other one on and do the same thing back and forth until it's nice and snug. Alright, so I got the other ring on, doing the exact same thing, just doing a little bit at a time, going back and forth. Just get it nice and snug. You're gonna do it multiple times. And the reason why doing this, going back and forth, is it's helping the ring seat squarely on the scope tube. So it's making as much contact as possible. So yeah, I just want to do that with all of them. And that's it. And so after that, once you get them all nice and snug, the scope is straight how you want it and everything like that, then we'll get the Torx screwdriver out. Alright, so I like to tighten the rail first. This is already just finger tight, pushed the scope ring forward, applying pressure and finger tight. So this one should be a 1/2 inch, yep, 1/2 inch deal. And the ring, so this scope ring is calling for 65 inch-pounds, which is insane. That's more torque than the action screws call for the stock, which I think is 50 inch-pounds. So I'm going to do 40 inch-pounds on the sides, which is all you should need. That's plenty of enough torque. So on these ones that require just the hex nut, on these rings, 40 is about all you should really need. And then if it's a scope ring that has 2 screws on the side, no more than probably 35, if not 30 inch-pounds is all you should really need for the side screws that go to your base. That's all you should really need. So we'll do 40 inch-pounds on these ones on the side. All right, I got these ones snug right here to 40 inch-pounds, which is all you should really need. And these top ones, so obviously SIG has 25 inch-pounds. but that's assuming that they're using their scopes. Vortex calls for 18 inch-pounds. I just think 18's odd. So I do all my scopes, no matter which manufacturer, at 20 inch-pounds. That's all we're gonna do up top. That should be all you need. And we're not doing Loctite on anything, not even in the base, not on the sides, and not up top. No Loctite. The only time you ever really need Loctite if you're shooting like 408 Shy-Tech and like 50 BMG and those super magnums. This is just a 6.5 Creed. Shouldn't need any Loctite if you torque everything down. I have the torque screwdriver set to 20 inch-pounds. And we'll just do this method just like you would tighten a cartwheel. Go back and forth. Back and forth. And then you're going to click over. I like to do twice on each one. Alright, so after you tighten it down, going back and forth across from each other, and you do that from both of them, you want to chase it. So, say if you finish on this screw, you're going to start at that screw again, and you're going to click over, and chase it the opposite order you did. You'll always get, not always, but you'll sometimes get a little extra rotation on each screw. So it's nice to chase your screws because you'll get a little extra play. Because once you tighten, sometimes with how these work, you tighten one side and adjust this side a little bit. So you always want to chase the screws, torquing them down. Alright, and that should be it. Looks pretty good. The gaps on the rings are pretty close to the gaps on the other side. They don't have to be perfect. Some people will get like gauge calipers and get them to the exact like 1/1000s, but if they're decently visually close, that's all it should really matter. The big thing is you don't want one side closed and the other side to have a big gap. That's not what you want. And you definitely don't want both sides completely closed. Then that means you crushed your scope. The rifle itself is a CVA Cascade in 6.5 Creed with a 22-inch barrel. I just have a radial muzzle brake on this one. And I threw it in a Grayboe Halo stock using the Ultimate Mini chassis, which is super easy to install. And then, yeah, it just takes regular AICS mags. But yeah, that is how I like to mount a scope on a rifle. And obviously, add your scope covers if you want scope covers, which I highly recommend these Butler Creek ones. And then a bubble level is always nice. You can put that wherever you want. On the scope, I like it on the front part up there, but basically to install one of these is pretty easy. You have your scope level, and then you just make sure you put the bubble level wherever you want and get the level in there, level with the scope, and that's it. It's pretty simple. Other than that, that's how I like to mount a rifle scope on a rifle. Have a good one.